I like to watch people. It's one of my favorite hobbies whenever I'm out and about. I like to watch people like an anthropologist, and I like to watch them closely. And one of my favorite subjects as of late is the older Asian woman. The Asian woman past her 60s, into 70s, 80s, 100. Let's call her Susan. You know, Susan's a good name for an older Asian lady. Susan here, she has friends. She has friends of a similar age who do Tai Chi with her at the park. You know, they like to do a little of, let me just, my hands here. They like to do a little bit of this. Then sometimes I see a lot of hip exercises associated with Tai Chi. I don't know if it's part of Tai Chi, but it's like the stretching exercises, like, That's what I see Susan and her friends do, Tai Chi in the park. When I see that, I'm filled with I'm filled with warmth, but at the same time, I'm also filled with jealousy. I'm jealous of Susan. And it's not her clothes I'm jealous of, because I too have a puffer jacket. I have a black North Face puffer jacket, but I feel like one day after the slide, after menopause, I will be drawn to purple. The thing is, I see myself in Susan. I see my destiny in Susan. But I also feel very jealous of Susan because Susan has friends. Susan has three friends who do Tai Chi with her. And what does Teresa have? Teresa doesn't have a purple puffer jacket. Teresa doesn't have a sun visor. Especially at the rate she's going, she's not going to have any friends to do Tai Chi with when she is old. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about how Teresa in her 30s needs to find some lifelong friends quick so she doesn't have to do Tai Chi in the park by herself when she is old, when she's 100. And I know I'm going to live to 100. Miserable people always live very long. So without further ado, my name is Teresa. I want to be Susan, and this is the quest for friendships. How to make friends, keep friends, strengthen friendship bonds, and find an affordable place to hang out so that you don't become a lonely old woman in your old age. Does that work for you? What do I call it? I don't know. I just make this up. My name is Teresa, and this is Modern Friendships. So a few months ago, I did a video all about the loneliness epidemic, which you should definitely check out, but not before you finish this one. So that video was all about the loneliness epidemic that's gripped the world ever since lockdown. It is not the main cause of loneliness in general, but it is the final nail in the coffin of a problem that I believe has been ongoing, snowballing for years, decades even. Since I put out that video, I have, get this, I have met up with my friends. I have socialized 2 times last year, twice. I met up with work friends and I've met up with high school friends. And at the end of every lunch, it always ends the same. We are in the same city. Why don't we see each other more often? And let's not let another 3 to 5 years pass without seeing each other. We are a 20-minute drive away, but then slowly but surely, months pass, deadlines, children for some of them, demanding jobs, like meeting up just gets pushed to the back burner. So I'm assuming if you have a limited amount of time, you spend time with your family, your children, your significant other, siblings, your best friends. I'm on the, like, I don't know, 5th tier of the friend list that you see maybe once a year. You know, back in elementary school when you pick teams for PE and you're like, I want Margaret, that's my best friend. I want Christina, that's her, that's like the second friend. And I'm always the last chosen for the team. But at least I'm on the team, I guess. The 5th tier friend is what I am. Friend that's there because of closeness, because of proximity that you may like, you know, tell some funny jokes. But at the end of the day, when life moves on and you graduate from school or you leave your workplace, I'm that person that you would just not see anymore. I think I'm just a friend by convenience. So back to being that 5th tier friend, and recently I learned that the better word for it is called fringe friends, casual friends that you enjoy seeing occasionally. occasionally. These are the people you see only at parties, but are always happy to chat with, people you see at the local watering hole, the people who end up in your orbit by proximity, the ones who rode the subway to work with you at the same time every day or wait next to you for their morning coffee. It's kind of like my relationship with the UPS guy at my former job. It's kind of like in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, the mailman. Hi neighbor, here's your package, sign here. It's like you see him every day, and then one day he decides to drive the UPS truck and he's no longer delivering in the same route. I didn't get his number, he didn't get my number, because it'd be weird. I'm not interested in the UPS guy that way. That's the fringe friendship that we have in our lives that has more or less kind of disappeared as we change jobs, move, work from home. Whenever I hear about like this person is my best friend, usually these two people go back a long way, all the way back to elementary school or high school or even college. I feel like at this point in my life, if I hadn't made a best friend, maybe it's too late for me. I feel like the only way I can make a best friend right now, like forge that lasting bond, we end up in a situation like in Speed, like we're both passengers on a bus that's been hijacked or something. So I know I'm not alone in all this. There's got to be somebody out there who also doesn't have a best friend and is kind of on the fringe of people's friendships, the fringe friend. Instead of feeling sorry for myself that I don't have a best friend, let's just concentrate on making more fringe friendships. So we're not asking for the moon here. We're just asking for some place to go where everybody knows your name. We're just asking for people around us to say hello to. You could still feel connected and you could still feel like you're part of something bigger or fulfilled, even if you're not somebody's best friend. So basically what we need to combat this whole loneliness epidemic, if you unfortunately have not been able to form any lasting best friendships, is that you need more fringe friends in your life. So basically you need to find a place where everybody knows your name. Basically, you need to find the real life cheers. So that brings us to the concept of the third place. You have your first place, which is your home, your inner sanctum. Your second place, which is your work. Then the third place is a gathering point, a relatively affordable, easy to get to, hopefully walkable gathering place that you can accidentally, underline accidentally, socialize with people that you would not purposefully socialize with. They just happen to be there. They are regulars that you accidentally socialize with. The third place is like a public park, a public library, a coffee shop, the mall, somebody's basement, somebody's backyard, a cafe of sorts, like a French cafe, or a diner. Cheers is like the ultimate third place, the ultimate fictional third place where people from all walks of life, different types of personalities who you would not think would ordinarily become friends, would just have a beer together, learn about each other, and over time develop a friendship. Fringe friends become true lifelong friends. And I feel like that's what's missing in our modern friendships nowadays. Is we're missing that third place where people from all walks of life could get to know each other, get to know each other's different points of views, go from fringe friends to real friends. So my goal for this year is to find the perfect third place in my neighborhood, in my city. Hopefully I could just tell the people I know, this is a good place to hang out, and maybe we could all become regulars there. Whenever I see the characters from Friends or Seinfeld gather in this one meeting place, I am filled with a cozy warmth. I want that too. I've always assumed that when I grow up and I'm free to do whatever I want, I don't have to like tell my parents, I'm only gonna be here for an hour and then you can pick me up and go home. When I have freedom and I could drive or be on my own, I will have a close-knit group of friends, 4 friends. We would sit in a booth, in our regular booth in a diner like in Seinfeld, and talk about nothing. That unfortunately has not happened. It turns out that as a kid, maybe I already had it and didn't know I had it until it was gone. On the street where I grew up, for a sliver of a moment, I was friends with 2 girls who lived next door. We also were in the same first grade class. We used to ride our bikes together and we used to play Barbie on the sidewalk. We used to just hang out on the sidewalk while our parents did whatever. Nowadays, I wonder if kids are even allowed to hang out on the sidewalk anymore. Are kids just too busy with what, school, extracurricular activities, or are their parents' stranger danger sensors so high? Kids just don't have languid moments, languid summers hanging out on the sidewalk. As an adult, I think it would be great to just loiter around and hang out on the sidewalk, but I don't know who to do that with. And in fact, my city, the suburbia that I live in, is very against people just loitering around the sidewalk, especially adults. And I don't know if any of my former work friends or high school friends, like if I call them up, you want to hang around the sidewalk? I don't think that's gonna happen. And I don't think they're gonna pencil me into their busy schedule to just kind of loiter around the sidewalk. When you reach adulthood, between your jobs, family, kids, you don't have any free time anymore. So maybe our global loneliness problem is not so much a lack of friends, it's just lacking the free time to just hang out at the sidewalk. Like, who has time to do that? But then at the same time, the city doesn't want you to do that. They think that people hanging around on the sidewalk is trouble. When I walk around my neighborhood, I do see this lady. People in the community call her the blanket lady. She's this lady that walks around with a blanket, over her head. She's not homeless, but she's on the spectrum, and she's always loitering around the sidewalk. She gets around. She has traveled maybe like 5 long blocks with this blanket, just wandering back and forth, back and forth. Maybe I should just befriend the blanket lady. I want to hang out on the sidewalk, and she wants to hang out on the sidewalk, so why don't we just hang out on the sidewalk together? There was a year where I walked around carrying an umbrella, and I used the umbrella to poke at street lights, because it was that time. Maybe I should continue to carry around my umbrella and just befriend the blanket lady, and I could just become the umbrella lady. I'm equally as eccentric. Question is, I wonder if this blanket lady is spry. Because if she's spry, she could be receptive to learning some Tai Chi. This year, I'm trying to make it my goal to find like a restaurant or coffee shop or diner somewhere that would allow me to just be there and linger. But I feel that this itself would be very difficult to do. A lot of modern coffee shops, they're small, they have limited seating. There's always this awkwardness. If it's really busy, I would feel terrible of just staying there for 3 hours. I'm sure when they set that check on that table, I'm sure the servers want you gone. And then at the same time, if you go to a restaurant that is relatively dead and you stay there for 2 hours, kind of weird. It's just you and the owner, 1 or 2 servers. They could hear everything you're saying. In Seinfeld, the diner is always full of people, and yet they're able to stay in their booth for hours and hours and talk about nothing. And in Central Perk, business is always booming. They are never the only ones in this coffee shop, and yet they could have the prime location. I wonder if Gunter, the coffee shop owner, if he just wants them out. Of course, if you go to a bar or a pub, the owners wouldn't mind if you stay for a long time so long as you keep a running tab, but then that means you have to get really drunk. I can't keep a running tab. I'm a lightweight. Like, I'll drink a quarter of a glass and I'm done. I'm drunk. I don't want to become an alcoholic just so I can have friends. So it seems like the best option that I can think of is to hang out with a blanket lady on the street. I am very careful with my money. So running an open tab at a bar, especially since I can't handle my alcohol, might be a little difficult for me. Running an open tab at Starbucks might be a little difficult for me. So it's kind of hard to make friends when you have to spend money. And that's another thing. If I were to hang out with friends every single week, what we do when we hang out is we catch dinner or we catch lunch, we eat out, I would go broke. Nobody ever really suggests, why don't you just come over and I'll make you a sandwich? So if you are one of my 4 friends and you happen to be watching this, what do you say that you come over and I'll make you a sandwich from deli meat I got from Costco? Living in a suburb is a lonely experience. And I think that's just because of the zoning laws involved. Things are zoned for single family homes. Best case scenario of urban planning, you live above the diner, you live above the bookstore, the diner is around the corner, a movie theater is just around the corner. It's a walkable neighborhood. If you're walking, you're more likely to see the same people over and over. If you take the streetcar or a subway, you're more likely to see regulars over and over. But suburbia, especially suburbia in America, are car-centric. It really relies upon you going from your isolated single-family home to your isolated car. Work is on average 20 minutes away. You drive on the freeway to work, you're isolated there. You never see the same people. So it's kind of like a doom loop of isolation. Because of zoning, you live away from where you work, you live away from where you shop. There have been attempts of creating the Third Place, the mall in modern suburbia, but malls are dying. In some places, they're already dead. Where I come from, most of them are thriving, and that's only because real estate is very valuable. No developer is going to let a mall die without either demolishing it or repurposing it. Nothing is going to be left abandoned. However, I can count on one hand the amount of time times I've seen a familiar face at the mall. I can count to 0 the amount of times I hung around the mall, made friends with some random person hanging by the fountain. It doesn't happen. I feel like you go to the mall for a purpose and not to linger, at least as an adult. As teenagers, you may have more time to kind of linger. I did read an interesting article. Some teenagers now are becoming so rowdy, they are expected to have a chaperone when they go to the mall. I feel like that defeats the purpose of being young and just getting away from your parents. You want to be with your friends. How uncool would it be if you went to the mall with your friends, chaperones by your mom? The malls where your parents drop you off so they could go to work. How are they going to have time to chaperone you? They have to work. There's 2-income households nowadays that afford to live in suburbia. The mall's kind of like daycare for teenagers. Given the fact that there are a shrinking number of malls or dead malls in parts of America, where do the teenagers go? Do they hang out at the sidewalk? Chances are the powers that be, the authority, the grown-ups, don't want idle teenagers hanging around the sidewalk because they could become ne'er-do-wells. Idle time breeds trouble. You can't hang around the mall without a chaperone, or there are no malls. So then the youth are just being driven to stay inside or be on their phones or their computer screen time all day. So we have the complaint that the youth is spending so much time online on TikTok. Their self-esteem and their views of the world is being completely distorted. Too much screen time is bad for you, but then when they want to hang out at the mall, no, too rowdy because they don't know how to socialize because they've been on the screen. Do you see how this is a catch-22 and that as a society we've just created our own problem and now we're complaining about the very problem that we've created? There's a lot of complaints about like how we're raising iPad kids. There's always somebody to blame, right? I don't blame the kids. I don't really even blame the parents. How are you going to spend time with your kid if you're both working and tired and working the 9 to 5? A lot of corporations, as much as they say they value work-life balance, when push comes to shove and there's deadlines to be met or metrics to be met, you're like, actually, I'm going to take this day off to chaperone my kid because they want to go to the mall. I need to spend more time with my kid because I can't let them be raised by iPads. We got to have some parent-kid time. Later, you can spend all the time with them you want because you'll be unemployed. When I was in San Francisco recently, I felt like there are certain enclaves of that city that felt like a small town. I was at Golden Gate Park and the neighborhood around that area was very quaint and very aesthetic. There's colorful Victorian homes within walking distance of a local restaurant, of a bookshop, and then there's Golden Gate Park where a lot of people gather. There was a community jazz festival going on at that time and people were dancing with each other. It felt like a small town in a big city, like the kind of small town that you would see on TV. Kind of like Gilmore Girls, which is the epitome of what everybody thinks like a small walkable town should be. Felt like I get the vibe here and it would be nice to live here. This is the ultimate, you have great public transportation and small town vibes within a big city. In the same vein, when I was in the Chinatown of San Francisco, I felt like there was a small town vibe in the big city and there were many elderly Asian people. It was raining hard that day, but they still got out to play mahjong. They usually play mahjong in the park, but this time because of the rain, they were under like a bridge. Not even torrential rain could stop the elderly people from collecting together and playing mahjong. And I'm like, that's great. When I return to my Stepford suburbia, I don't see any of that. So I'm like, San Francisco would actually be a great place to live. But the thing is, how do you live there? How do you live there if you don't make a grip ton of money, if you don't make tech money? I'm gonna have to sell a lot more books, guys. I guess I have to go super book talk viral. Like Colleen Hoover's here, I need to beat Colleen Hoover. And she doesn't live in San Francisco, by the way. I think she lives in Texas. But I'm just saying that despite what you hear on the news or despite preconceived notions of cities being isolating, lacking a small town vibe, there is very much a small town vibe alive within the city, within the enclaves of a city. In conclusion, I am still in search of that fabled third place, if it ever existed in reality. Does Tom's Restaurant from Seinfeld or Central Perk from Friends or Cheers, did it only exist in a sitcom? I can never pronounce the sitcom. Did it only exist on TV? Over the course of my life, I've experienced brief moments where there was a third place. There there was grandma's house, which is still there, but it's not the same because grandma is gone. There's the sidewalks of my childhood neighborhood, which is still there, but the ghost of our youth plays there now. In my neck of the woods, the malls are still there. Instead of becoming more dilapidated, they've become more bougie, not as casual or relaxed, not as inviting. In other parts of the country, the malls are dead, abandoned, dwindling. Again, the ghosts of a liminal space. So I turn to you, my beautiful viewers. Do you have a third place that you would like to tell us about? Is it a coffee shop, a diner, a library, the mall, somebody's house? Is it your house? Let us know in the comments below, because I honestly would like to know. I'm on a quest for community. I'm on a quest for friendship. I'm on a quest to belong, to hang out. I guess you can call this little corner of my bedroom, this corner of YouTube, our third place, where we come and hang out every week and talk about nothing. I leave you now with an excerpt from one of my favorite books in the whole wide world, The Witch of Blackbird Pond by Elizabeth George Spears. The main character is kind of an outsider, a newcomer to her small puritanical New England town. She finds refuge in the cabin of a fellow outcast just like her. This book has the perfect description of the third place. Okay, I could do this. "'Tis a pretty room," she said without thinking, and then wondered how that could be when it was so plain and bare. Perhaps it was only the sunlight on boards that were scrubbed smooth and white, or perhaps it was the feeling of peace that lay across the room as tangibly as the bar of sunlight. Okay, I am a wreck. I'm just reading about sunlight streaming in through a fictional cottage, and I just can't handle it. And that just goes to show you how much my heart just needs to have a third place, a place of refuge, a sanctuary, if you will, where familiar faces come to hang out, to just be there, just to be there with some people. My lonely heart yearns for that. It yearns for friends like Susan has, you know, Tai Chi friends. So the question of a lonely future still hangs in the balance for me. Will I be doing Tai Chi with a group of friends, or will I be doing Tai Chi alone? A lone person in the park doing Tai Chi, which is the saddest image of all.